Sam Sumana, blocked from 2026 APC leadership, law or political sabotage. Welcome to the Bold African Voice, BAV, where we unmask power and inspire change. I'm Ahisatu Kamara Kargbo. Today we're unpacking a legal and political earthquake in Sierra Leone. The High Court has ruled against former Vice President Sam Sumana's bid to contest the APC leadership in 2026. Is this simply the law at work or a clever way to sideline a political heavyweight? Stay tuned as we break it down, compare it to similar cases across Africa, and look ahead to what this means for Sierra Leone's democracy. Former Sierra Leone Vice President Alhaji Chief Samuel Sam Sumana's bid to contest for the leadership of the All People's Congress, APC, in 2026 has run into legal headwinds. While supporters see sabotage, the courts and party constitutional rules present a far more technical barrier. Let us unpack what's going on and see what this means not just for him, but for party politics across Africa. What the law says: High Court rulings and APC Constitution, key rulings by Justice Adrian Fisher. In 2022, the High Court under Justice Adrian Fisher delivered two landmark judgments. One invalidated actions by both the National Advisory Committee, NAC, and the Interim Transitional Governance Committee, ITGC, of the APC on membership matters, because those bodies were found to have lacked lawful authority. Specifically, announcements of Sumana's reinstatement in earlier years, under Osman Foday Yansane's leadership, then under Alfred Peter Conte, were struck down. The reasoning was that any decisions by illegitimate party bodies, for example, committees not properly constituted under the party's constitution, are void in law. There is a strong judicial insistence that internal party organs must be democratically constituted and follow due process. APC Constitution, the 5-year membership requirement. The APC revised its constitution in March 2022. Among its provisions are Article 35(4) and Article 56(b), which impose a 5-year continuous membership requirement for aspirants to certain leadership positions. Since Sumana's lawful reinstatement, recognized by the courts, only took effect in 2023 under a general amnesty granted at the 2023 National Delegates Conference, he does not yet satisfy the continuous 5-year membership period. By simple calculation, he cannot qualify under these rules until 2028. Constitutional authority and party autonomy. Sierra Leone's Constitution, 1991 as amended, asserts that political parties must organize internally in ways that are democratic and not in conflict with the national constitution. Courts have often upheld that parties may set internal eligibility criteria, so long as those criteria do not contravene constitutional provisions. Legal analysts point out that the national constitution requires parties to conform to democratic principles. Recent developments and news, as of late 2025, the Political Parties Regulation Commission, PPRC, has weighed in, ordering the APC to clarify Sumana's membership status. It found that the party did not follow due process when declaring his membership forfeited, e.g. no proper hearing, no disciplinary committee process, and that payments he made during membership were valid. On the other hand, Sumana's camp continues to challenge the 5-year rule. Some legal voices have argued that Article 56(b)'s requirement is unconstitutional because it conflicts with constitutional requirements for eligibility, for example, for the presidency, internal party rules, etc. Critical analysis. Legalism versus political realities. Law is playing a decisive role here. It is not simply internal party culture or factional politics. The judiciary has refused to allow procedural shortcuts, even if politically expedient. This sets a standard. In Sierra Leone, ruling party or opposition party, respect of procedure, legitimacy of decision-making structures, and constitutionality are not optional. However, legalism has its limits. Even strict adherence to rules depends on fair adjudication, access to legal remedies, party transparency, and willingness, or lack thereof, on all sides to accept judicial decisions. Political actors often try to reframe what is law into what is politically fair, which can lead to tensions between constitutional requirements and party rules. If internal rules are overly restrictive, they can prevent potentially popular or capable leaders from contesting. The 5-year membership rule is one such limit. Critics argue that such a rule, when probed under constitutional law, especially under sections mandating democratic principle, internal party democracy, and non-contradiction with the supreme law, may be vulnerable to challenge. But so far, courts have not struck this rule down. The case for unconstitutionality is being made, but it will have to satisfy the judiciary that the rule indeed conflicts with the Constitution, not merely that it is inconvenient for Sumana. The question of equity. Does this favor incumbents? Rules like continuous membership for 5 years tend to favor established party actors and act as barriers to re-entry or comebacks, especially for those who were expelled or who departed, as happens often in African politics. The tension is between stability, predictability, discipline, which such rules aim to ensure, and openness, renewal, and forgiveness. There is also a psychological and political cost. Sumana's supporters are likely to view the enforcement of these technical rules as exclusionary, potentially eroding unity within APC, particularly ahead of crucial elections in 2028. That could undermine electoral strength if handled badly. Africa-wide comparison. Let's compare this to a few similar situations elsewhere in Africa to see what lessons emerge. Country. Similar rule/case. How handled/outcome. What it suggests. Kenya political parties often have membership duration or dues requirements to contest internal positions, sometimes challenged in courts. For example, aspirants who recently joined parties find it difficult to contest primaries. Courts sometimes intervene, especially when primary rules clash with broader electoral law or constitutional rights, e.g., freedom of association. But often, parties get away with restrictive provisions if they argue they are part of internal governance. It suggests that mere existence of constitutional provisions does not guarantee they'll be enforced proactively unless a claimant brings a case and the judiciary is willing. Nigeria APC, Nigeria's party, PDP, etc., have internal election controversies, including eligibility criteria, dues, loyalty. Courts have sometimes nullified party primaries for failure to follow party constitutions or INEC Electoral Commission rules. Mixed. Enforcement depends on strength of claimant, public interest, media attention. Also, outcomes often become settlements or compromises rather than full judicial declarations. For Sumana, the case may either settle or force APC to clarify its rules further. There may be room for negotiation. South Africa. The African National Congress, ANC, has rules on membership duration, disciplinary procedures, etc. Courts have heard challenges, especially for expelled or suspended members seeking reinstatement. Many challenges fail because party constitutions are quite explicit, and courts tend to defer to internal party autonomy unless there is violation of constitutional rights. Rules that seem unfair may survive if properly enshrined. Thus, clarity in drafting and enforcement matters. From these, the common pattern is legal clarity matters, constitutional protection matters, but political power and internal party dynamics often determine whether rules are enforced, amended, or circumvented. Forward-looking perspectives. What are the possible pathways from here, and what could happen heading into 2028 and maybe beyond? 1. Legal challenge to the 5-year rule. Sumana or his supporters might take the matter to a higher court, e.g., Supreme Court. They would argue that Article 56B and/or related requirements conflict with constitutional rights, e.g., the right to association, non-discrimination, or constitutional provisions about party membership. Some legal opinions already exist to that effect. If successful, this would open the door earlier than 2028. But judicial overturns of internal party rules are rare. The burden is high. Second party constitutional amendment. The APC might consider amending its constitution. If the party leadership sees value in including Sumana sooner for electoral strategy, unity, manpower, etc., they could modify or waive the 5-year rule or introduce a transitional clause. But such amendments themselves would need to navigate legal, procedural, and possibly electoral commission oversight. Third, political settlement. There may be negotiations. Sumana might agree to support another candidate now in exchange for assurances in 2028 or some power sharing. Political trade-offs are common. Sometimes these lead to internal deals so that technical rules are respected while political ambitions are managed. 4. Strategic patience. Sumana and his allies could wait until 2028, meet the membership requirement fully, and then contest without legal risk. Meanwhile, use the intervening years to rebuild base, shore up political goodwill, avoid further legal fights that could backfire. 5. Wider implications for APC and Sierra Leone politics. The legitimacy of internal party processes could become a campaigning issue. I follow the rules versus you're shutting me out. The PPRC's role might grow stronger. Party governance and internal dispute resolution will likely be more tightly regulated. There is a risk of internal fracture. If a segment of APC supporters believe that the rules are unfairly applied, disunity could reduce the party's electoral strength. Is this a constitutional crisis or just a bumping along? Some have called this a constitutional crisis, but on closer inspection, it seems more like an institutional test rather than a full crisis. The courts have not overreached their constitutional bounds. They are enforcing member rights and constitutionally required procedures. The APC Constitution, 2022, is public and known, so is the National Constitution. The rules are not secret traps. No jury is saying the Constitution is being ignored altogether. Rather, that Sumana does not yet satisfy some internal requirements. That said, if the perception grows that rules are being selectively enforced, one person sacrificed, others excused, or that party leadership uses the courts to bench rivals, perceptions of injustice may take hold. In democratic politics, perception matters. Africa in 2025 to 2026, election cycles, internal party democracy, and eligibility rules. Looking more broadly, many African countries are preparing for elections in 2025 to 2028. Internal party dynamics are increasingly under legal scrutiny, eligibility criteria, nomination processes, internal democracy. There is a growing trend. Courts are less tolerant of opaque party processes. Civil society, media, and electoral commissions are pushing for transparency. At the same time, there is resistance. Party elites often favor stability, control, and predictability, which rules like the 5-year membership requirement offer. Where these tensions have played out, e.g., Kenya, Ghana, Zambia, the outcomes vary. Sometimes courts force loopholes open. Sometimes parties respond by reforming. Sometimes conflict festers. The humor in the hurdles. Because what's politics without a little irony? Imagine being invited back to a party after you'd been thrown out, applauded for your return, then told, "Nice you're back," but wait 5 years before you even think of leading. That feels a bit like being allowed into a club, but only allowed to DJ when you've been paying dues for half a decade. For Sumana's opponents, the 5-year rule is like a legal stop sign with cameras. Once you see it, you know crossing it has consequences. And for law students in Sierra Leone and elsewhere, this is pure case study gold. Due process, party autonomy, judicial oversight, constitutional hierarchy, all in one saga. What happens if it breaks or doesn't? Let's sketch two alternate futures. Scenario A, the 5-year rule is overturned. If a higher court, or perhaps through constitutional interpretation, Article 56B is struck down or read down, Sumana could become eligible before 2028, perhaps for the 2026 leadership contest. This would set a major precedent. Parties must ensure eligibility rules align with constitutional rights. Internal party democracy will receive greater judicial weight, might lead to many others, in APC or elsewhere, revisiting their internal rules, potentially opening doors for those currently excluded. Scenario B, rule holds, all legal hurdles remain. Sumana must wait until 2028. In the meantime, his political capital must be preserved. Any misstep could weaken his hand. Party unity will require careful management. If his supporters feel cheated or marginalized, APC could suffer internal divisions. For APC, it means clearly delineating leadership contests for 2026, handling Sumana's role, if permitted, in a way that respects legal constraints while maintaining cohesion. The stakes and takeaways. Sam Sumana's path to APC leadership in 2026 is not blocked by mere political maneuvering, but by a combination of legitimate judicial rulings and explicit constitutional domestic party law. The tension is between fairness and structure, popularity and rule compliance, internal democracy and political calculation. For Sierra Leone, the case reinforces that legal and constitutional frameworks are not optional. They matter. For Africa more broadly, it is a reminder that internal party rules are increasingly under the microscope, and that elites can no longer simply assume control. They are constrained by law as well as politics. Reform menu, APC plus Africa-wide. 1. Fix the rulebook, clean drafting plus due process guardrails. Clarify eligibility clauses, e.g., continuous membership, with explicit transitional provisions for members returning under amnesty, so future disputes aren't litigated through press releases. Sierra Leone's APC brought a new constitution into force on the 25th of March 2022. Use the next ordinary review window to add transitional text and enumerate exceptions, e.g., amnesty cohorts. Embed procedure for reinstatements. Who investigates, who decides, timelines, right to be heard, and ratification steps. Committee to NDC. Justice Fisher's 2022 rulings faulted actions taken by bodies lacking lawful authority and quashed unilateral reinstatements, underscoring the need for procedural plumbing. Publish a compliance checklist, one-pager, that party officers must tick before any membership/disciplinary decision takes effect. If it's not checked, it's not law. Simple. 2. Independent internal appeals. Create an internal appeals board with fixed terms and eligibility, e.g., senior lawyers of good standing, ex officio observers from the electoral regulator. That reduces the instinct to sprint to the High Court for every quarrel and shows good faith to the PPRC, which has already been dragged into the Sumana membership wrangle. 3. Amnesty architecture. Where a general amnesty restores members, write an annex listing, what the amnesty cures, e.g., forfeiture, expulsion, what it does not cure, e.g., time-based eligibility clocks, and how clocks are computed. The present dispute exists partly because amnesty restored membership in 2023, but the 5-year continuous rule, Articles 35, 4, and 56B, still pushes eligibility to 2028, unless amended or judicially narrowed. 4. Sunlight policy. Proactively publish all membership, disciplinary, and amnesty decisions online within 72 hours, including the decision-maker's legal authority and the evidence considered. Parties across Africa that adopted radical transparency during primaries saw fewer court stops, Kenya's lesson, 2017 to 2022 cycles. 5. Regulatory handshake. Agree a memorandum of understanding with the PPRC for fast-track clarification when eligibility disputes arise, before conventions heat up. The recent PPRC engagements/complaints around this case show the Commission will step in if procedural fairness is in doubt. Strategy roadmaps for each stakeholder. For Sumana's camp, 1. Two-track strategy. Legal. If you challenge Article 56B/35(4), frame it as a constitutional harmonization case, party autonomy versus democratic guarantees, not a personality plea. Fisher-era precedents show courts respect process and lawfulness over improvisation. Political. Negotiate a 2026 to 2028 compact. Support in 2026 in exchange for defined roles and an open runway to 2028 when the 5-year clock matures, if rules stay intact. 2. Don't litigate the convention calendar. Courts dislike being seen as primary schedulers. Litigate the rule conflict with the national constitutional order, if at all. Sierra Leone's constitution gives wide latitude to parties but expects internal democracy. You must show a clash, not mere inconvenience. For APC leadership. 1. Pick one lane and stay there. Either A. Amend the 5-year clause with a targeted transitional window for amnesty returnees, ending 2027, or affirm the clause and run a unity ticket that integrates Sumana in senior campaign roles short of flag bearer. Mixing signals breeds litigation. 2. Codify reinstatement procedure to avoid any more unilateral pronouncements like those Fisher struck down in November 2022. 3. Scenario plan. If a court trims the rule in 2026, have vetted contingency rules so the convention can lawfully accommodate a late entrant without chaos. For PPRC and civil society, push a model party governance code, eligibility, discipline, transparency, that parties adopt voluntarily under comply or explain. A gentle nudge that still moves culture. Risk scenarios, 2025 to 2028. Scenario, what triggers it? Likely outcome mitigation. A. Rule holds, courts decline to intervene. APC keeps text. Sumana waits till 2028. 2026 contest proceeds without him. Offer formal 2026 unity accord plus guaranteed 2028 open primaries. B. Rule narrowed court interprets amnesty restoration as reviving prior continuity. Eligibility window opens earlier. Compressed timelines publish emergency primary rules with fair nomination windows. C. Procedure breakdown. Another unilateral decision by an improper organ court injunctions. Convention uncertainty. Pre-clear every step against 2022 Fisher precedents. Legal audit 60 days pre-convention. D. Regulator steps in. PPRC finds due process flaws. Orders corrective steps. Reputational costs. Live stream hearings. Publish reasoned decisions within 72 hours. A little humor. Scenario C is the political version of DIY plumbing. Yes, you can do it yourself, but one wrong twist and the whole house floods, with injunctions. Communications playbook, because the court of public opinion also sits daily. One message, many tongues. We respect the law. We will compete hard within it. 2. Receipts ready. Link every announcement to the clause and the decision-maker's lawful authority, organ plus article plus date. After Fisher's 2022 decisions, nothing declared by an improper organ should leave the printer. 3. Explainer cards. Short visuals on how eligibility works, what the 5-year rule means, and what the 2023 amnesty fixed and didn't. 4. Depersonalize. Make this about institutional predictability, not heroes versus villains. If your narrative needs a cape, make it the Constitution. 5. Media rhythm. Weekly updates until Convention Day. Silence the rumor mill by over-informing. Africa-wide comparison. What smart parties did. Kenya, 2017 to 2022. Parties that published clear primary handbooks, timelines, and appeals rooms had fewer court-imposed reruns. When rules were vague, judges intervened and primaries slid. Lesson, write it down, publish it early. Nigeria, multiple cycles. Courts routinely nullified primaries when party constitutions or electoral rules were ignored. Where parties documented due process, results stood even amid noise. Lesson, process is power. South Africa, ANC cases. Courts generally defer to internal autonomy when party rules are clear and followed. They step in when democratic rights are trampled or rules are weaponized. Lesson, clarity plus consistency discourages litigation tourism. Monitoring dashboard. What to watch weekly. Judicial docket. Any fresh filings touching Articles 35, 4, or 56B, or amnesty interpretation. PPRC communiques. Complaints, directives, or clarifications involving APC membership eligibility. APC governance notices, convention calendar, appeals windows, candidate vetting rules. Check them against the 2022 Constitution and Fisher guidance. Media legal analyses, ongoing coverage that crystallizes the current state of play, e.g. the September 17, 2025 pieces summarizing why the High Court roadblocks, not party sabotage, are decisive. Quick Q&A for spokespeople. Question, isn't this just a witch hunt? Answer, the decisive obstacles are judicial rulings and the written eligibility rule adopted in 2022, not factional tweets. If we want a different outcome, we must amend rules or win in court, not argue with calendars. Question, can amnesty override the 5-year clock? Answer, not as drafted. Amnesty restored membership in 2023. The 5-year continuous requirement still counts forward unless amended or judicially interpreted otherwise. Question, why should courts tell parties how to run themselves? Answer, courts don't pick candidates. They enforce lawful authority and procedure. See November 2022 Contempt Ruling and Related Guidance. Parties keep autonomy inside constitutional and statutory boundaries. Model Amendment Text, Options A, B, C. Option A, Transitional Clause for Amnesty Returnees. Article 56C, Transitional Provision. Any member reinstated to the party by a general amnesty of the National Delegates Conference shall be deemed to have maintained continuous membership from the original date of admission, provided that such reinstatement occurred not less than 24 months before the National Delegates Conference at which leadership elections are held. Effect, counts Sam Sumana's earlier years, makes him eligible by 2026. Risk, opens door for anyone amnestied, late to leapfrog eligibility. Option B, reduced clock for amnesty cohorts. Article 56C, transitional provision. For members reinstated under general amnesty, the requirement of 5 years continuous membership shall be reduced to 3 years, provided the member has previously served a cumulative period of at least 5 years as a registered member. Effect, a compromise, requires a shorter but real wait. Risk, could be accused of being tailored for one individual. Option C, strict rule, but with 2028 carve-out. Article 56C. No waiver or reduction of the 5-year continuous membership requirement shall be granted. However, the National Delegates Conference of 2028 shall provide an open contest for all members lawfully reinstated by the 2023 amnesty. Effect, keeps integrity of the 5-year clause, signals 2028 as the true reset. Risk, leaves 2026 closed, prolonging discontent among Sumana's bloc. Why this matters beyond APC. In Ghana, 2023 to 2024 NPP primaries. Clear timetables and published rulebooks helped avoid chaos, even as heavyweights clashed. In Kenya, 2017 and 2022, Courts intervened mid-primary because parties lacked fallback timetables, forcing reruns. In Nigeria, 2022 PDP, APC disputes, parallel congresses and last-minute injunctions created two candidates' headaches. INEC had to choose. The lesson: if Sierra Leone's APC builds a dual-track calendar, valid whether courts uphold or trim rules, the convention won't stall. White paper on reforming APC internal governance and eligibility rules. Draft for discussion, September 2025. Executive summary. The recent High Court rulings against former Vice President Alhaji Chief Sam Sumana's 2026 APC leadership bid underscore deep tensions in Sierra Leone's political party governance. While the courts have affirmed the supremacy of lawful procedure, the controversy reveals gaps in the APC Constitution's transitional provisions and highlights broader challenges of internal democracy across Africa. This paper proposes a three-pillar reform agenda. 1. Rulebook clarity, transitional clauses, due process. 2. Internal appeals and transparency, sunlight compliance checklists. 3. Contingency planning, dual-track timetables to reduce litigation chaos. Comparative lessons from Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa show that reform now can strengthen APC's legitimacy, preserve unity, and reduce electoral risk ahead of 2026 and 2028. Background. In 2022, Justice Adrian Fisher invalidated reinstatements of Sam Sumana because they were made by bodies lacking lawful authority, NAC-ITGC. He ruled that illegitimate party organs cannot be recognized in law. In 2023, a general amnesty granted by the National Delegates Conference lawfully restored Sumana's membership. However, the APC Constitution, 2022, Articles 35(4) and 56(b) require 5 years of continuous membership for leadership eligibility. This makes him ineligible until 2028. Recent commentary frames the matter as political sabotage. Yet multiple legal analyses confirm that the obstacle is not politics, but the plain language of the Constitution. The Political Parties Regulation Commission, PPRC, has intervened, noting due process lapses in earlier forfeiture decisions. This episode illustrates a structural weakness. Party constitutions lack transitional provisions for reinstatements. Critical issues identified. 1. Eligibility rigidity. 5-year rule lacks flexibility for amnesty returnees. 2. Procedural opacity. Members are often expelled or reinstated without documented hearings. 3. Judicialization of politics. Courts are pulled in because internal remedies are absent. 4. Perception gap. Supporters interpret strict legal enforcement as factional sabotage. Reform options. Option A, transitional amnesty clause. Deem reinstated members as continuous if restored by general amnesty at least 24 months before a leadership election. Pros: immediate inclusion restores equity. Cons: risks appearing tailor-made for Sumana. Option B, reduced clock. 3-year membership requirement for amnesty returnees with prior cumulative service. Pros: balanced compromise. Cons: requires verification of past membership records. Option C, strict rule 2028 reset. Maintain 5-year clause but declare 2028 as an open contest year. Pros: legal clarity, minimal litigation. Cons: may fuel short-term discontent and division. Implementation plan. Phase 1, immediate, 0 to 3 months. Legal audit of current APC Constitution. Cross-check Articles 35-56 amnesty provisions. Draft proposed amendment text. Options A, B, C. Convene Party Legal and Governance Committee. Phase 2, medium, 3 to 6 months. Table amendments at APC National Delegates Conference. Publish an eligibility and appeals handbook. Citations, timelines, checklists. Establish internal appeals board, senior lawyers plus observers. Phase 3, long-term. 6 to 18 months. Sign Memorandum of Understanding with PPRC on Fast-Track Dispute Resolution. Digitize membership records with timestamps to avoid who paid dues when disputes. Train regional officers on compliance. Use Fisher rulings as case studies. Africa-wide best practices. Ghana, NPP, 2023 primaries. Published handbooks cut down court cases. Disputes resolved in party tribunals. Kenya, 2017 and 2022. Courts ordered reruns, where timelines and appeals processes were vague. Transparency reduced later disputes. Nigeria, 2022 PDP APC. Courts nullified primaries where internal constitutions weren't followed. Proof that rulebook clarity prevents parallel Congress chaos. South Africa, ANC cases. Courts defer when rules are clear and consistently applied, but intervene where democratic rights are compromised. Forward-looking risks and scenarios. Scenario likelihood impact. Mitigation rule upheld. High Sumana excluded until 2028. Unity Accord plus 2028 open primaries. Rule amended, medium expanded 2026 contest, published clear amendment plus appeals, window court narrows rule medium eligibility, open early dual track convention calendar, regulator steps in high corrective directives, reputational cost MOU with PPRC, live stream decisions. APC faces a choice: maintain rigid constitutional discipline or adapt rules for inclusivity. Either path requires clarity, transparency, and credible internal appeals. The Sumana case, though contentious, offers an opportunity to professionalize party governance, strengthen democratic legitimacy, and set a precedent across Africa. Advice to African leaders. 1. Respect your own rulebooks. Constitutions, whether national or party, are not window dressing. Once written, they must be followed. Leaders who bend rules for short-term gain only weaken institutions for the long term. 2. Build internal democracy. If parties run like closed shops, how can citizens believe national institutions will be open? Party democracy is the seedbed of state democracy. 3. Plan for disputes. Every dispute need not be a constitutional crisis. Courts should not be the default referee. Strong internal appeals boards and transparent disciplinary processes reduce judicialization. 4. Think beyond one election cycle. Rules that bar rivals today may bar allies tomorrow. Inclusivity today may be the insurance policy for unity tomorrow. 5. Lead by example. If Africa's leaders insist on rule-based party governance, the message will cascade to parliament, courts, and the streets. Democracy begins at home. Key messages. Sam Sumana's 2026 exclusion is not sabotage, but law. His lawful reinstatement began in 2023, and the APC's 5-year membership rule points to 2028. Justice Fisher's rulings matter. Party organs must be lawful. Illegitimate committees cannot make binding decisions. APC must decide. Amend rules. Options A or B, or affirm the strict rule, option C, but avoid improvisation. Africa-wide lesson, from Ghana to Nigeria, parties that clarify their rules avoid court battles. Those that improvise invite judicial intervention. Forward-looking approach, dual-track calendars, internal appeals boards, and transparent communication prevent crises. Humor in politics. Rules are like stop signs with cameras. You can ignore them once, but the ticket always arrives. Final advice. African leaders must invest in institutional clarity, inclusivity, and forward planning, because today's excluded rival may be tomorrow's coalition partner. Thank you for watching The Bold African Voice, BAV, where we speak truth with courage and vision. The Sumana saga is more than just about one man. It's about how African parties manage their constitutions, their disputes, and ultimately their democracies. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to join our growing community of bold voices across Africa. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the stories shaping our continent. Together, let's keep the conversation alive. Until next time, stay bold, stay African, and stay informed.